Okay, now I'm about to use Twinmotion, okay, and I kind of went through this last week that if you do have a graphics card on your machine, you might want to try disabling the onboard graphics before using Twinmotion. It can be a bit unstable and sometimes won't even launch if it finds a bit of a clash between these two. Twinmotion's much happier using this NVIDIA piece of hardware. It doesn't really want to use these if it can avoid it. Okay, so you go into Device Manager, right click your onboard graphics and disable it. Mine's disabled at the moment, so the opposite would be enable. I don't really tend to find any need to re-enable them. We did have a few problems with AutoCAD last year that we got kind of like a crazy pattern of lines when we were using it, and that was actually using the onboard. It wasn't using the graphics card. So that was one thing that did go a bit strange. Okay, if you've downloaded it already, then you should have these on your desktops ready to use. Usually you have to launch the Epic Games Launcher first. Okay, and then it gives you access to Twinmotion and launch. I know you've been busy with other stuff of late, but you know, this really is a chance to start using this, and you'll find that, you know, for experimentation, it's so much quicker getting results. Okay, so it's waiting for us to pull in some information. On My Dundee, you're looking for another zip file, so further down beyond the AutoCAD and the 3D Studio Max stages, you're looking for this file here, sculptureparkmaterials.zip. Okay, so this has got the model of Camperdown House and some bitmaps that you can use to enhance the scene. Okay, so download that and unpack it, and then you're ready to pull this into Twinmotion. So that the software starts like this. It's starting in an import mode because there's nothing to work on. There's a ground here and this background kind of wraparound strip, but you're basically going to be importing geometry. Okay, so before I do that, what I need to do is just tell the software to save regularly and improve the reflections. So a little tweak, which should stay permanently once you've done it, is to go to Edit, Preferences, Save, and I've got the save interval to be very quick, every 2 minutes to do an automatic save. It will build up 5 files in total. You can add more if you want. It's a bit pointless because once it's crashed you're going back to one of these, and you can tell it where you want them to be saved to make sure you can get at them. So mine go to Drive D, Autosaves Twinmotion. Okay, so there should be some in there from earlier on. If I have a quick look in there, there should be files from earlier on today. Autosaves Twinmotion. Oh, it's empty. Maybe it clears them away once the software closes. Probably it does actually. They're there while you're working, but gone when you finish. That's a bit scary though, isn't it? I would have expected them to be sitting there, but I'll investigate that. Okay, so select folder. So the other thing I was talking about was the reflection quality. So that's the reflection volume resolution, and for speed this can be on a low setting, but if you want it to look reasonably good, then you can increase that to a maximum of 1024 by 1024. So okay that. Then we'll import the file. Okay, so we're looking to the folder that wherever you've downloaded. Sorry, it should be on desktop. Okay, to today's session. Okay, sculpture park materials, and this is the FBX file for the house. It's not the sculptures. We'll get the sculptures later. Okay, so it's the house FBX, and open. This is the critical thing when you're bringing a model in. It's how you want the data structure to be collapsed. Sounds a bit techie, but keeping hierarchy would keep the names of everything. Okay, so let's take the example of the sculptures. We've got 6 layers and each object is on a separate layer. Keeping the hierarchy will give us 6 objects to work with. Okay, if we brought in the sculpture but collapsed by material, everything's going to be blue and we won't be able to unpick it. Every time we change material, it'll change on all 6 components. Okay, collapse all. Now that basically scrunches everything into one object, names and all. So wouldn't be much difference between, there wouldn't be much difference between these two for the sculptures. Okay, for the house, if we had it on collapse all, we've got one lump with all sorts of different materials in it, but we can't really change much at all. It's really difficult to work with. Probably okay, you know, if it was a context that everybody was using and you didn't want anybody to change anything, then that would work okay. You could kind of keep it all together. Okay, but for the house, we want to collapse by material. Okay, there is a button here that tends not to do much that I can see, but maybe best to just chuck it on anyway. Fix UVs and textures. Okay. So it looks a bit strange because we're inside the building. Okay, the software thinks that this material for the house faces out the way. So if I roll my mouse forwards and then hold the left mouse button and turn round, sorry, hold the right mouse button and turn round, we can see the building. Okay, we can see it a bit more solid. There's still a few gaps because the material is at the moment it's a one-sided material. If I go closer to the house, you'll see the automatic exposure control start to work. Okay, because the building is occupying most of the view, it's changing the exposure to suit what's here. If I drop back, we're getting more bright sky and it starts to balance out the exposure. Okay, first thing I want to do is deal with the context here, and we do that in the settings ribbon. So these are 5 different kind of command areas. So I've got settings. Let's choose a place on the planet first. So let's go to location. We wait for the little map to appear. The pointer always starts in Paris because the people that originally devised Twinmotion were based in Paris. Okay, let's get closer, and well, that was quite a good shot. I'm in Camperdown Park already, and the house is just about here. If I zoom in closer, you should be able to see the house. Oh, I did that last time I went to the toilets. Okay, the house is here. Okay. Now the north offset, so the map here is correct. The building model is basically, you know, faces generally south in terms of the 3D model, but this north arrow is bizarre. It doesn't seem to have any kind of relationship to what's happening with the map or the orientation of your model. So we've got to kind of do this manually, set the north offset. Okay, the background is a bit unrealistic, so we can change the picture for the countryside, and you can rotate that to get whatever it is in the distance for your particular view. Okay, this is called a breadcrumb trail. So this is your way back from a command. Okay, so if we wanted to just go back to location, we just click one step back in the breadcrumb trail. Okay, let's just change the time of day a bit here. Let's make it a little bit more dramatic. Let's go about 11:30 in, let's go September, say. Looks a bit more interesting. Okay, so that's your first step, is getting the general kind of location sorted. So let's save the file at this point. Give it a name. And I'm going to save it onto my desktop. I'll save over the one that's there already. Oh, nice. I've already deleted it. So I'm just going to call it Campy, which is what Dundonians call Camperdown Park, which belongs to us. Doesn't belong to anybody else. It was gifted to the people of Dundee by the Earl of Camperdown. Okay, so next step is trying to improve these materials, and let's have a look at the building first. Let's have a look at the house. So what we do is sample the material that's there at the moment. Okay, so you click on the house. Okay, the material is called stone. That's okay. That material came through, from the 3D Studio model. And the first thing I want to do is deal with these gaps, and that's through settings, and we put the two-sidedness on. So you can see all sorts of little gaps are filled in now. So the model wasn't full of holes. It just thought those surfaces were facing the wrong way. Okay, let's go back to the main material level, and let's add a picture in. Here, all we've got at the moment is a color setting. What we can do is add a bitmap. So we can add a texture map to that. So we open. Okay, I'll go find my folder. Sculpture Park Materials, into the Maps folder, and there's masonry.gif. You could use this big one if you want, or just use the little one here. It's going to be faster because it's a smaller file. Okay, so it's starting to look stony already. Now bear in mind this model has already got UVW mapping on it from 3D Studio. Okay, well, you can add mapping here, but at the moment it's using the mapping that's already there from the object's UV. So just roll with it for this first model. You can start experimenting with the UVs later on. Okay. The default setting is to replace the material that's there. Later on we'll change that to apply to object. Okay, but keep it on replace material just now. Okay, the picture there, the GIF picture, is a bit big. It's kind of stretched a bit too high. So if we go back to stone, and then we can adjust the scale of the mapping. Now there's some mapping here. We can drag this down. Okay, we can scale it in all sorts of different directions. We can rotate it. We can align it, whatever we need to do. We can scale it differently for X and Y if we want it to be a bit taller or a bit smaller. Okay, so you know the concept of UVW mapping, so that shouldn't be too much of a surprise. Okay, that's a nice easy one. Let's have a go at the windows next. Slightly different. So you click on the Windows object. So you're kind of like you're sampling the material from the object. Okay, it's already got a name, Window 2. So let's use another bitmap. Open, and let's use this window pattern. Okay, and like I say, the mapping for these windows is already set up. Okay, go back to Window 2. You can make it reflective. You can see them kind of changing. You can see a bit more of a reflection happening over there. It's reflecting that string course. Difficult to see elsewhere. Okay, so we've got them fairly glossy, but we could also add a bit of texture to this. So if we go to settings and add a bump map, so I click here, open, and these are the types of pictures that Twinmotion prefers. These are called normal maps. Okay, that's a kind of a standard bump map in black and white. Okay, if I just open that, is it going to open it? Yep. So that's a standard type of bump map, pretty basic. Okay, but normal maps are quite dramatically different, and these give a much more realistic appearance when they're lit, because they actually kind of define which bits will receive light in a more natural way. They're very clever. So especially with kind of metallic materials as well, they really work well. So window 1 and open. Doesn't have a huge effect on this, I just really wanted to show you the map type. Okay, so the windows are done. Let's have a look at that in a bit more detail on the roof here. Let's sample the roof material. Okay, let's do the bump mapping first so you can see it actually take effect. Okay, so settings, add a bump map. Okay, let's use slate normal. There, so you can see the bump mapping is quite visible, quite believable. It's not quite lining up, so we can make a little adjustment on that. So settings, we want to go back to the main material actually. Here's the UVW mapping, axes, a very small nudge on the y-axis. That looks okay, they're pretty much in line now. Now we want to put the picture now for the slates. That's not really going to show up as slates. If we go further away you can't really see anything. Okay, so we need the picture for the slates to go into the color slot in more. So we add the picture of the slate. Now it's not showing up. There's something a bit strange with some of the textures. What we have to do is actually reduce the intensity of the colour. Now, not sure what the logic is on this, but if we go to the colour picker and drop this down, it basically kind of fades in the picture of the slate. So okay that. So with white it's effectively no other colour. So it's like a tint you're adding on top. So you can see it here, it looks much better. And once that's faded out. Not sure, what kind of is behind that, to be honest, but it's a bit strange. Let's go for this glass here. Let's use a material from the library now instead. So this is where things get really much better for you, when you're using the actual materials that come with the software. Okay, so this pops out. We've got another one on this side, and this deals with basically the names of objects. So because we compacted ours by material, the list isn't that big. It's not huge, and we've already edited 3 of these. Okay, but over here we've got materials, and let's say we want a fairly dark glass to put on the roof there. There's a very dark tinted glass. Just drag onto the object, change the opacity, and we can see it's kind of reflective on that side. So you've got hundreds of materials to play with there. Another set of materials are in this Quixel Megascans area. Now these have to be kind of downloaded, and they they basically create an object for you. They take the geometry that you've got and basically turn it into a quick cell object. So this is quite strange. So let's choose a surface. We'll go for metal and we'll try and find something a bit kind of in sheets. Okay, let's go corrugated. Let's try one of these. I haven't used one of these, so I know these are going to be okay. So these are very smart materials, these. So let's put some corrugated metal onto the roof here. Rusty painted metal sheet. Let's go for something pretty crazy. So you can see here we've got a download button. So these have to be pulled in before you can use them. So you click on the re-download. It's going to take a few seconds. Here it comes. Okay, so it's ready to use now, and what I'm going to do is drag it onto this roof material. Okay, creating an object. So thinking about it, these are very high-res JPEGs and materials behind these. Okay, now what we can't see is any pattern showing up there, but it could be to do with the scale. It's not showing at all yet. I'm wondering if we should change. Now, we had this previously. It didn't quite function. So I'm going to try that again. Let's see if we pull it on again. See, there we go. We got it now. So what I did, the only difference there. Oh, it's working originally now. I think it maybe just needed a kick up the backside there. Okay, so obviously it doesn't look quite very good. It's not. It should. We really need something a bit stripy, but you can just see how kind of realistic these things look. They're really good. So something a bit more sheet-like. Let's say we download this one. But these get bound into this model only. They don't become a general kind of material in the library, I don't think. I think they're on this model only. So let's put that on. Okay, I don't know if the mapping will readjust itself. Oh, there we go. So we've got something a bit more sheet-like. Probably facing the wrong direction there. So we can rotate that. And you can type in numbers on these. You don't have to use the sliders. You can over-type these with numbers to get the direction you want. So that looks quite good. A lot more sheet-like. Okay, so that's quick cell stuff, and there's objects as well. There's some really cool objects you can get as well as surfaces. So there's lots of 3D assets, all sorts of. Oh crikey, these are maybe a bit small, these. So all sorts of stuff. A lot of it's kind of video game based really, not necessarily architectural. So let's do a few more things here. Let's tweak the colour of these chimney pots. The yellow looks a bit ill. Let's go a bit darker and the kind of terracotta side of things. That looks a bit better. Okay, the ground is looking pretty unrealistic, so we can just drop some new materials on there. So materials library, ground, natural, and we've got grass. So we can put some grass on there and some grass on the context as well. And we can change the colour of that, make it a bit greener. Just take that yellowness off it. Okay, same with this one, make it a little bit greener, a bit darker than that. That's better, not so in your face. Then we've got these materials here. We've got some Maybe some gravel for that. Maybe some paving, some small paving stones in here. Let's have a look at the scale of them. The closer we get, the more we can see just how realistic they look with that normal mapping instead of bump mapping. Okay, so we can adjust the scale. Adjusting these numbers, maybe 0.85 or something like that. You try and get it so that, you know, it fits a full stone across each one. Okay, how about some bitumen or some tarmac over here. You've got your scale as well for that, and then maybe something in these flower beds. So something a bit more muddy looking, maybe forest ground. Pop that in, that's a bit yellowish, isn't it? How about grassy ground? Ooh, it's a bit bright, but we can play it down a bit. Oh, it's got reflection on it, that's not good. So anything kind of on the ground doesn't really want reflection on it. We've not got reflection on the grass, we do on the tarmac. Reflection, reflection, yep. Reflection on paving stones, that's not very realistic. But we could make this a bit darker. So you can take any kind of material and tweak it to suit. Okay, so that's the kind of the next step done. That's materials all tweaked. Okay, then we'd move on to the vegetation. So definitely save it before you do this, because this is the bit that's most likely to crash your computer when you try to place lots of tree objects. You know, it's all very carefully kind of tuned to not crash the machines, but it can. Okay, so far we've been kind of messing around with computers just by twisting and turning. Okay, you can use set views. So if I just escape, click this eye icon. Okay, then the little house symbol, and we can choose kind of orthographic views and come back to perspective whenever we need to. Okay, so let's go for the top view, and we want to now add some major content here, so we'll do some vegetation painting. Okay, so you can either paint with one tree. If it was a forest of the same trees, then that's okay, but generally we tend to have a kind of mixture of trees. So let's drop a few different trees in here. Okay, some big, some small, some bushy, some tall. Okay, let's go with that. Let's say just 5. Okay, so that's going to be the kind of selection set that it's going to paint with. So you get your paintbrush, you decide how big a brush you want to use. Okay, you have to change this depending on what you're trying to paint, because some areas aren't big enough to take even one tree. Okay, so it's ready to paint, and we just come over here and put in our forest. Okay, you get the idea. So if we view that back from the ground, if we come back to perspective view, we've got lots of trees. Okay, you get closer to them and you notice that the trees are subtly moving. They're just flapping a tiny bit in the wind. Okay, the green pattern on the ground is kind of still saying that I'm in a painting mode. It's expecting me to carry on. Okay, you can use a smaller brush. You know, you don't have to paint in plan if you don't want to. You could paint, you know, in this kind of view instead. Okay, so that's, if I now want to tweak this, I can change the density of specific trees. So if I think there's not enough of these spruce trees, I can change the densities quite merrily. Okay, you can change the age of the trees. Okay, because that was just a single tree I had selected. Okay, if I had this one selected, you know, you can tweak them. If you find that one's a bit too big, overpowering the forest, then you can tweak that. Color can be all adjusted as well. Okay, now if I want to change now to a different type of shrub or a different type of plant, then probably easier to go back to the top view. Okay, and I want to vegetation paint again. Now I don't want to use this set though, because at the moment it's kind of stuck on that set. So I'm just kind of escaping there to try and get away from that particular set. It sometimes is a bit sticky and doesn't want to go. Right, that's good. It's cleared the painting tool now. I can choose some different types of plants. So let's go for bushes instead. There's not many bushes to choose from, to be honest. They're pretty limited. Okay, we want to paint with a smaller brush. Okay, let's get in a bit closer, and we can put one on top of the other. It's filling in spaces in between and around the trees. So you can put forest, you know, different groupings together, try and get some kind of enclosure. Okay, I think you get the idea. And have a look at that from the perspective view. So we've got lots of shrubs now. Okay, if you find that you've gone over the pavement, you can erase, and we can take away the ones that are causing problems. If you find, you know. Okay, like I say, you can paint directly on as well. So if we escape that to get rid of that particular set, vegetation paint again, let's choose flowers instead, grasses and flowers. Let's have some tall bits of grass with some flowers. Okay, we want to paint. That brush is a bit big for that, so make it a bit smaller. And we can basically notice further away it doesn't show you the plants because we're just too far away for it to bother generating them. But it's very, very effective. Okay, same again, erase if you need to. Whoops, erase. So you can be quite careful with it. I'm just going to save at that point because we've done that successfully without any crashing. So it's save there. Okay. Give it a few seconds. The model's getting bigger. Let's try a scatter instead. So instead of painting, you can try scattering. Okay, we could use some tall grass, some weeds. We should be able to add stones into this as well. They're a bit big. Let's find a stone that's not too big. I think these are probably going to be a bit on the big side. That's a... It may end up looking a bit kind of crazy, but like I say, you can mix and match the what you scatter. Okay, so we'll highlight them all, and then the tools light up. Okay, so a scatter is basically just a click on the surface. Whoa. Okay, so we've got too many stones there. Obviously that looks a bit crazy. So, but you can take that stone out of the selection and they just disappear. Okay, so if I want to do another scatter but just with tall grass, I can just add, and it's not adding so many weeds then. You know, if the grass, you think the grass is too big, then we should be able to edit that and bring all those bits of grass down. Now they're a bit big, but I think you get the idea. Okay, so that's the kind of vegetation component done. You know, it's just really getting you to try this and give it a go. Not necessarily have to be, you know, pucker and the way anybody would ever plant grass or whatever. It's just to have a play with the software. Okay, so let's now bring in the sculptures. So we file, we want to import, so you can either go import here or you can import at this point. Okay, these files stay there, but you don't have to keep them. That can actually be deleted. It doesn't lose the software. The house isn't going to disappear if I delete it here. It's just the reference to the file. Okay, this can be edited as well. You can create your own folders. So if you right click in here, we can have a new container. So if I go at this level and right click, a new container, and let's say we'll call this vegetation. Oh, helped if it wasn't all. Okay, and then you can put these into here. So just like you do in Photoshop, you can arrange things. So then it's easy to control visibility if you need to. Okay, and notice this is lit up now. Once it's selected here, it's then editable. So that kind of relights it and makes you able to change that. So if we said we need more weeds now, bigger weeds, we can come back and edit that, no problem. Okay, so but we were just about to import these cluster.fbx. So this is on my desktop. But this time we want to keep the hierarchy, so we end up with 6 components. Okay. Right, the model should be in now, cluster.fbx. It's inside the middle of the house, that's just kind of where it defaults to. I can move it out here, move it up, and we've got our sculptures. Now they're not very big like that, so if we wanted to scale them up, you can click this little downwards arrow and you've got move, rotate and scale. But because this is in a folder, it's not letting us scale the whole group. What we need to do there is go into the folder, select all 6, and then we can scale them up. Okay, so let's make them a bit bigger, a bit more impressive. Okay, and now we're looking for position, so it's move again. So you can tap the tab key if you want to get to move. And we need to pull them out the ground a bit so we can see them kind of touching the grass. So just about there is probably okay. That doesn't look too bad on all of them. Okay, and now we can swap some materials. So this is the next stage, sample a material. Okay, you can adjust it yourself if you want, or we can go and get different colored plastics and glass. So let's go for glass first. Got some nice colors of glass down here. Let's have a red one, very Chinese. Aha! So this is what's happening because I've not changed the setting here. Okay, so instead of replace material, we want to apply to object. Really important, that one. Apply to object. Okay, change the opacity there. And we've got a nice shiny semi-transparent kind of plastic. Looks quite good. Okay, how about we've got yellow. I think that's as yellow as it's going to go. Yellow on that one. Okay, make it shiny. It's a bit kind of greenish, isn't it? Really? Maybe a blue plastic there. Okay, it's looking quite good. Okay, how about some plastic materials now? Okay, let's say we want to use just a standard colour here. Well, that's bubble wrap, that's not going to work. We'll use this glossy plastic. Okay, so we'll put it onto that one, but we want it to be redder. Okay, so we want to increase the kind of strength of the red. Okay, what we want to do here is rename that. So that's red glossy plastic. Oops. Red glossy plastic. Okay, so that's not in the library, so we can use this again if we want. We can put the kind of pinky one on there and make it a different color again. So we want this one to be kind of more yellow. Nice strong yellow. Okay, and then rename that one. So just right click it, rename yellow glossy plastic. And lastly, put it onto there, modify it again, a nice shade of blue. It's quite nice, not too dark. And rename and blue glossy plastic. But choice is yours, however you want to do that. You can put materials straight out of the library or tweak ones that are already there. Okay, they look really quite nice and shiny and reflective, but we can improve the reflections by using a special device. In the tools part of the library, you have a reflection probe, and we just drag that in. Okay, make it bigger and watch what happens on these objects. You'll start to see the reflection change. Okay, so we make it bigger. You see the way the reflection's adjusting. It's picking up the trees behind the camera. I'm seeing the trees reflected over here. Okay, sometimes you need a few of these to deal with the whole scene. Okay, but reflection probes are pretty important because they're one of the kind of the time savers. Look there, the reflection there is pretty unrealistic. It's not right for that particular view. So it is a bit of a shortcut to doing the true reflections, but it's something you just got to try and experiment with. Okay, and then the last thing to do here is add, a couple of people just so we can see the scale. So these are objects. Oh, sorry, we've got characters, not objects. And we've got posed people or animated ones. Okay, the animated ones look a bit stiff. They're not really kind of very family kind of appearing. So we've got Sin here. He's not really interested in the sculptures. He's just kind of looking around, got his can of Coke or whatever it is. Okay, but you can rotate these. It wouldn't scale them because they're not going to be life size then. Okay, and then you've got posed ones and animals. If you want to put a dog in, feel free. There's Morgan with his bike. The posed ones have got a few kind of family groups as well, which is quite useful if you get some youngsters in there as well. If I can find them a bit further down. There we go. Frank and Tommy instead of Tommy. Yeah, having a look. Okay, but they do definitely help set the scene. Now, one thing you can do, if I bring these two people towards me, okay, so say that's the scene, that's the view we want to generate. Okay, you go to the media settings. We want to create an image for that. It's like locking a camera. You don't place cameras, you basically create a view, and that is your camera view. So we'll create that image, and we can then edit that. We can set settings particular to that view. So that can include the weather, the time of day, and everything can be locked into the camera, into the view. So if I go to More and then Camera, and a lot of people like playing with this. It's called a depth of field, and this gives you your kind of blurry distance. It's quite common on telephone cameras now to have depth of field control. It's software generated though, it's not real like it would be with a proper camera. But if we switch that on, do you see it get blurry in the distance? Okay, you click on More and you can choose where that blurriness happens. So if I target the yellow sculpture, these two have got blurry close up. Okay, click on them, these objects are getting blurry. Okay, now that effect is much more, it works better if you have a narrow field of view. You notice these look much blurrier now because I've changed the field of view. Okay, and that's kind of what happens with cameras as well. If you use a zoom lens with depth of field, you get a much better effect. So let's target the house. So this is much blurrier here, and see how blurry it is now. But with a different depth of field, it gets less and less blurry. So you can make some really nice kind of animations by that. You can have two images, one with the blur on and one with it off, and it will animate the blur setting for you. Okay, so you go back to your image. Now we've made that change. You go back to the image and you update it, and that kind of locks in that change. So if we want a different view from a different angle, say just a general kind of aerial view, we create another image. Okay, it's very easy to accidentally record over your images. I kind of do it all the time. But each one can have different settings. So this could have a different time of day altogether. So you can change the location, so different time of day, but it's per image. Okay, go back to the image and update that one. So these have got different times of day now. So one's morning, one's late afternoon. This will catch you out. It does me all the time. I kind of forget that that's really the way it operates, but you can set different time of day. So if we go back to the main view, if we quit out of that and go back to the main view, actually the time of day will change again. The time of day will go back, it should go back to the way it was. If I get out of here, quit the media mode, notice the time, the time has gone back to the way we had it previously. Okay, so that is the assignment. Exporting this, it's these two images that you're going to export. So you go to the export command set. It doesn't know what to export at the moment. All of these are empty, so we want to export the two images that we've got. So you select all, start export, tell it where you want it to save them. So I'm just going to pop them on the desktop, select folder, and that's it, it's doing it. Okay, and then if I have a look at these on the desktop, I've got different names now. Let's just get rid of these two. Okay, so that's the first one, and that was the second one. Okay, I'm going to stop the screen recording. So it's the two PNG images that you create that I'd like to see, and just go a bit crazy with it. Don't hold back.